How do you create stunning cinematic images? Join me with Julia Fullerton-Batten as we discuss her choice of equipment, how she chooses and works with models to create her amazing images.
Well, I work with a Hasselblad. It's the H6D100C, and it's got an amazing digital back.
Mm-hmm.
So actually, it's amazing quality. So when I actually exhibit the prints and print them quite large, every single detail is really important that I create in the set. For example, these are created sets of sex workers, and I created these sets specifically to their lives and to their professions.
Yeah.
And having this digital back that is such good quality, really, everything is, I can print it super large, and that's really, really important to me. As I say, every single detail is just super important because it's brought in. I don't know if you can actually see this image at the moment, but I brought in the bird.
Yes, we see it.
What do you call it? It's not bird poo, is it? There's a word for bird poo.
Well, I know there's bat guano. I don't know. I don't know what normal bird poop is called, but we can go with poop.
So I
You had to
I
import that.
I created this set. This was just an empty room, and I'm bringing in all the bird feed, the
Uh-huh.
cages, birds, the bird droppings, and that's really important for people to see that.
And
But you have Hasselblad there, Mark.
yeah, I have a couple of them. This one, I have this one, which is the 501C, and then this one has just been loaned to me. This is the 907, and this back will come off and go on to the 501. But you know, in case you're not familiar with it, you're producing a very large file here. These are, film wise, that would be a 2 1/4 square. So that's a lot of real estate, and we're capturing a lot of detail. And this is their newest model, which is different than what you're shooting with, but very similar, I would think. It's got the back that flips out. You can kind of emulate the way you would shoot with this camera looking down into the viewfinder.
See, I love the looking down
I
viewfinder
do
because
too.
you're nearly shooting from the hip,
Yeah,
you know, then because so often people shoot at eye level and you have to crouch down. But if
right.
you've got the camera on the tripod and that you've got the down viewfinder, it's just beautiful to look through. I absolutely love it, and I've always, from day one, I've had a Hasselblad. It's just a beautiful camera to work with.
They are pieces of art. But what's cool with other cameras, since most cameras are now made with their LEDs that will flip out like this, you can do the same thing with almost any camera now, which I do like shooting, especially when you're communicating to someone else. If you do this, you're cutting yourself off from the person. But if you're like with it's popped out and you're looking down, you still maintain that connection. I think that's a really important point. And
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think you have much more control when you're able to move that camera all over, or even up high if you want, turn it upside down. Good. Well, why don't we take a few more questions? Jared, are you?
Yeah.
Yeah, there
Can
you
you hear
are.
me?
Yeah.
All right. We got a good question from Mike here. How do you instruct the models that you work with?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. I'm going to pop back to one of your images here. Yeah. So we're in the hen house.
This is a good example image because I'm recreating a story of a boy called Sujit Kumar, who's the chicken boy, and he was discovered in Fiji in 1978.
Wow.
And it's a project on feral children who became feral through neglect and finding comfort through animals. So they become quite animal-like themselves. So I very carefully cast the right kind of people for each specific shoot.
Mm-hmm.
And this specific boy needed to look like he was from a certain origin. He needed to look a little bit malnourished, not that he is, but he had to have these acting skills and had to kind of, I had to tell him the story of this child that I'm trying to recreate. So when I'm actually doing the casting and he's coming to I don't have a studio, I work from home. He comes to my home, I'm asking him to act out this child that I'm trying to create.
Interesting.
And that's really important. And if I see it in his eyes, in his manners, then I bring him in on the shoot. Then he's the right candidate. But it depends on each setup. I mean, when I did the project with sex workers, for example, and they're staging, I create these stages for them. I didn't have to instruct them at all. I'm not directing them. I'm just letting them play it out. But it depends. It depends on each setup. But the casting stage is super important to meet the people in advance and to see if they're the right candidate for the story that I'm trying to create.
Fantastic. Let's take one last question.
Yeah, I know exactly which question to do because I'm interested in it as well.
Yeah.
So Carlos, he's wondering, how do you get inspiration for your work? Do you actively look for stories, or do you get ideas from what you see through time? So do you just kind of stumble on them, or are you actively looking for these stories?
That's a really interesting question. Before lockdown and that project on lockdown, I was, for the first time ever, I just really had no ideas. I just thought, normally ideas just come into my head.
Yeah.
It could be just me walking about, seeing something or something I've read, a book I've read, or if I've been to a gallery or a painting has inspired me. And it just kind of comes flowing into my head. But before lockdown, I just had, can you call it a writer's block? If it's photography?
Photographer's block, I guess.
Yeah, photographer's block. I really had no idea whatsoever. And I started just going mad in my head, like, what am I going to create? And then I just thought, actually, for once, maybe I'm just not going to do anything. And then we had lockdown. And then it was shooting through the windows. It was nearly like,
Mm-hmm.
for me, it was nearly I shouldn't say this, but it just opened up my mind to photograph and take the opportunity to photograph lockdown. But normally I don't have that at all. And it can just be, as I say, it can be anything that just inspires me. But I've got to sit on it for a long time, because once I really get into this project, it's costly, it's time consuming, it takes all my energy, it takes me away from the family. I have to really make sure that
you're really
that's
committed.
What I want to create.
Yeah.
So sit on the idea for a while before I do it. Or I just shoot one image. For example, I'm just doing a project on contortionists, young female contortionists, and it's something I wanted to photograph for a while, but I wasn't sure if I wanted to make it a project. So I just shoot one girl or one day, and I've photographed three different girls that day, and now I'm shooting my fourth day. So now I've got 12 images, and it's turning into a project. So I think sometimes you don't really need to think, because if you think, oh my God, is this going to be a whole big project? I think a lot of photographers end up just shooting nothing,
right,
or end up nothing. So I think taking it step by step is okay too, to take, do one day, photograph one subject, one day, one shot or two in that day, and then see if it works. And it can be like a little mini test.
So I hope you enjoyed today's video. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and enable that bell so you don't miss any of our new videos. And as always, remember to get out and capture your own images of life.